Rev up your engines!
Well, yes, the woke nation has taken over. California is now suing 5 major oil companies, accusing them of deceiving the public over the risks of fossil fuel use. You people, you're making this oil and gas and you're burning it. You shouldn't be doing that. What are they going after next? The gun manufacturers. You make guns. People shoot people with guns. Yes, it's gotten absurd in California. They'll do anything for money now. They're lashing out the oil companies who have a tremendous amount of money. There's no arguing that, right? Saying you deceived us about how gasoline pollutes and la 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 la. It is unbelievable that they can go that far. That shows that the legal situation our country has gotten to. Here's what they say in that quote. There are risks associated with fossil fuels, which cause billions of dollars of damage in communities and the environment. So now they're suing the oil companies because they make gasoline and diesel fuel. And more hilariously, the oil companies have created a public nuisance, damaged natural resources, state property, and violated California law by misleading the state residents with false advertising and misleading environmental marketing. Well, if that's the case, they can sue everybody that advertises because almost all of them are complete bald-faced lies, including the government's definition of carbon neutral, right? So what are you going to do? Sue the politicians? You made a law talking about carbon neutrality, but it doesn't make any sense. You know, how far are people going to go? Of course, California, which needs all kinds of money, they can't tax people more than they have. So now they're trying to sue the oil companies to get billions of dollars from them. Yes, things are certainly turned upside down in this country, especially in the state of California. Maybe a giant earthquake will come and it'll float out into the sea or something. It can be its own country. And all the loonies can live there. It can be like Waterworld, but it'll be the whole state of California, right? Zap Rostower says, does dirty fluid act as a cutting fluid if slightly dirty? Does it only happen if fluid is saturated with dirt? Dirty fluid will turn into a cutting fluid. Yes, but only at pretty high pressures. For example, you got dirty fluid in your automatic transmission. The pressure in there is maybe 40 psi. It's not enough pressure to really make a cutting fluid, right? In your power steering system, if you got an older car with a hydraulic pump, that can be 1500 psi. And then the dirty fluid will definitely turn into a cutting fluid and can cut through things. So it's the higher pressures that really affect. Of course, you don't want dirt anyways. Dirt wears everything out. More friction, bearings will wear out, timing chains will wear out, piston, everything will wear out if you get too much dirt in the oil, and then it'll clog up too. Sports Guy 05 says, Scotty, what's the best luxury SUV? I'm thinking of getting a Lincoln, thanks. I wouldn't buy a Lincoln. You want a luxury SUV? I get a Lexus or I get an Acura. For the money, they last a long time. The American stuff has all the bells and whistles, right? You know, they practically have coffee makers built into each seat, you know? Heated seats, air conditioned seats, blah, 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 blah. They fall apart when they age, right? I see Lincolns, they come here when they're older, 8, 10 years old, they're rolling piles of junk. They're falling apart, right? You don't see that with the Acuras. You don't see that with the Lexus. They're much better made. Now, on the other hand, if you're nuts about a Lincoln and you're the type of guy that gets rid of your vehicles before they have 100,000 miles on it, you might be totally satisfied, right? So if you don't mind the money and then the depreciation, sell a Lincoln that's got 100 grand on it and you'll see what much money you would be losing. 60 to 80% of what you paid for it. The resale value is garbage because everybody knows they fall apart. But if you're satisfied with that kind of mileage, then you go ahead and get one if you like it. But it's not going to last 2, 3, 400,000 miles like the Japanese ones. Ryan Hall says, Scotty, can I use AT205 even if I don't have a leak? Will it prevent leaks in the future? Okay, AT205 Reseal is a polymer, and the polymer rejuvenates rubber seals. If you have a system in your vehicle that has all rubber seals, you could use it as a preventative. But you're going to have to understand how your particular vehicle is built and what it has. For example, if you got one of those crappy GMs, then instead of using a rubber rear main engine seal on the engine, they use a Teflon seal. The AT205 will ruin the Teflon. If it's not leaking out, it might make it leak. It only works on rubber seals. You got to find out what kind of seal your system has. It only rejuvenates rubber. All it does is rejuvenate rubber. It doesn't do any other things. And like I say, if you put it on one that has a Teflon-based seal, it'll eat it up. I've seen people do it. It will eat the Teflon up, and then it'll start leaking like a sieve. So you're going to have to understand, what are you putting in it? Are the seals only rubber? Solomon says, how do you feel about the Ford Maverick? Tried to find an FX4 package, but even Ford corporate couldn't find a single one in the country for me to see. They're interesting, right? It is Ford's foray into small pickup trucks, right? Now, unfortunately, they're all made in Mexico, and to me, that's a downer. You know, no jobs for U.S. citizens. They're all going to Mexico. Quality isn't that good down there. They are front wheel or all-wheel drive, so the cheaper ones are front wheel drive. They ride more like a car than a truck. On the other hand, they're not a real truck because they don't have a frame and then the body's bolted on. It's unibody, just like your regular car, just like a Toyota Corolla. It's unibody construction. They corner and ride better, but they're not a real truck for pulling heavy-duty loads, right? And since they're popular, they're marking them up $5 to $10 grand at the dealers if you can find one. So they're greedy and they're being swines. And I feel that anyone who's being a swine, I hope something bites them in the rear end in the future for being greedy and ripping off their own customers just because, hey, we only got a couple of them here. Let's charge them 10 grand more than the list price, right? Or you can put that in your pipe and smoke it and see what happens. I mean, they're interesting vehicles. I got to give them that, but charging people way too much money over them because they haven't built enough of them. Nicolao says, Scotty, is it bad to pour new engine oil over the old oil instead of changing it? Well, you want oil, right? So if your car's losing oil, yeah, you want to put new oil in, right? But you still want to change it because dirt and sludge will build up in the bottom of the engine. Let's say you got some piece of crap that burns a quart of oil every 200 miles. So you keep adding oil. Well, I'm adding oil. I won't bother changing it. You still got to change the oil and filter every 5,000 miles because there's sludge and crud building up, or it will break down even faster. So, do add it as it burns, but you still got to change it because if you don't change it, sludge is going to build up, the filter's going to get clogged up. You still got to change the oil, even in a junker, if you want it to last. Tired and Wired said, Scotty, Bill Burr is giving you a few shout-outs. He likes your videos. Well, thank you, Bill. I like your comedy. I think the guy's hilarious, I love this. That was for family cartoon that he did. Stuff that I grew up in, suburban house and all the craziness that goes on in suburbia. I got to say, I like Bill Burr. He's an interesting guy. Hey, I agree with a lot of the stuff he says. I think he's a funny comic. And I think comics should be able to say whatever they want. There should be no political correctness for comics because they're telling jokes to make people laugh. And a lot of times the laughter, you look at something and it's so insane that you can't believe what people are doing. You gotta laugh at it. Or you're gonna end up crying all the way to the grave, to an early grave. Laughter is the best medicine, as they say. And hey, Bill makes a lot of us laugh, Dave P. says, Scotty, should I be concerned that my Mazda CX-30 is made in Mexico and not Japan? Well, I would be. The Japanese are just fanatics about building cars, and they do an excellent job. But, on the other hand, your Mazda is put together in Mexico. The engine's trannies are still made in Japan. They're just putting them together in Mexico because labor's cheaper, right? I've seen Toyota Tacoma come from Japan, 250,000 miles, still run fine. Again, they're not making the engines and transmissions for Toyota in Mexico. I still really have a Japanese vehicle made in Japan, though. The Japanese just have this cultural thing like the Zen. They seem to be much more serious about putting things together, right, than Americans are. Carlos Sanchez says, Scotty, I want to buy a manual transmission car. What do you think of an 03 Honda Accord, 2016 Hyundai Elantra, or 2003 Toyota Corolla? Okay, knock out the Hyundai, and I would look at only the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Accord. If you want a little more speed, the Honda's a lot zippier than a Toyota Corolla is. But if you want better gas mileage and a car that can run 300, 400, 500,000 miles pretty much trouble-free, I'd get the Toyota Corolla. But of course, that would all depend on what shape either of them was in. 2003, you're talking about a 21-year-old car, both sides, right? So it depends which one was in better shape. Somebody might have beat the heck out of the Toyota and it's falling apart, and the Honda's okay. You got to get them checked out by a mechanic just to see what kind of shape they're in. Well, I hate to disagree, but I just read an article about Eric Buell, Buell Motorcycles, a big motorcycle area, right? And he's saying, oh, definitely the future is electric motorcycles, right? Well, all I got to say is I give him many reasons why not. They don't make noise. They can't go all that far. They cost too much money. They're too heavy, right? There's a million reasons why they're failing electric motorcycles. Bicycles, on the other hand, people love electric bicycles, but they're cheaper, smaller, right? But the electric motorcycles are a giant failure. Now, why anybody would listen to this guy Buell? Because he's been involved in so many bankrupt companies. I mean, why would you listen to a guy who failed in the motorcycle business talking about electric motorcycles? Of course, I'm assuming the guy probably is getting involved in some kind of electric motorcycle build-up where he's going to be selling Buell electric motorcycles, or at least use his name for somebody to sell Buell electric motorcycles. But anybody who knows motorcycles and people knows electric motorcycles, as they stand today, are a massive failure and will continue to be so because you can't go far. They don't make any noise. They weigh too much. They're heavy. It's just something that people who ride motorcycles aren't into. Electric cars, you might be able to push a certain amount of people because they're still just cars and they can still have a range, maybe 250 in realistics on the highway. Take one of these electric motorcycles on the highway, you're going 70 miles an hour. things usually run out of electricity within 1 hour. So, but of course, Buell, he's always failed in his motorcycle endeavors, so he'll probably go on and fail in this one too and take somebody else's money with him. Laugh when I read the article. Oh yeah, electric motorcycles, that's the future. Everybody wants them. What a load of horse manure. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.